I used to think mindfulness was about learning how to float above the pain. Like this meditation posture sit still, breathe, maybe watch the storm pass. But some storms don't pass. Some storms move in, unpack, and stay for years. And the real practice isn't floating above them, it is learning how to keep your heart open when everything inside you wants just to bolt the door. Today, on this episode of the Mindful Journey podcast, listeners, with your host Sanaf, we are sitting with someone who knows exactly what that feels like. Cyndee Dhalai has been rejected, disowned, ostracized, told she should have died, told she would never walk again, and then did. She has written raw poetry from a wheelchair and a book on grief under a pen name because some truths are too heavy to carry under your real one. People call her a miracle. She calls life salt and light. I just want to know what it actually feels like to live inside a story everyone else labels miraculous, listeners, because when you are the one who had to bleed through every chapter. So, with that, Cyndee, welcome to the Mindful Journey, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Sana.
Yeah, Cyndee, I mean, during the intro, I think this is something so true. On the surface level, people say that everything comes and goes, and you just have to keep moving on. But then most people who face family rejection at least have the hope that one day they'll prove them wrong, and they'll be welcomed back. But you you were disowned for marrying the person you chose. And even after everything you have survived, a relative still asked why you didn't die instead of your loved one. So, at what point did you stop waiting for their approval and decide it simply wasn't coming? Because it's really a very hard decision that we have to make.
It is a hard decision, and I think nobody wants to go through that. But we do face like rejections in small ways sometimes, from going to when we start school and that people we want to be friends with don't want to be friends with us, or, sometimes we do things and our families don't like it, or
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we take a part in life that sometimes is necessary, but even we don't like it. So you kind of reject yourself to a certain extent. For me, it was more like from a very early age, I kind of realized that how I saw things, most people didn't see it the same way. Because sometimes you're so constrained by the environment and your religion and the society you grew up in that you're expected to conform to all the rules and follow it if you're to be a good person or if you're to get ahead. But you find yourself thinking, well, I'm not comfortable doing that, or that's not the way I feel about things. And
Mm-hmm.
thus, um, something had happened when I was young. And I remember asking, what was wrong with me? I mean, what am I doing wrong? Why do I think this way and everybody else thinks that way? So maybe it's me that's wrong. Maybe I have something missing that I'm not seeing that other people are seeing because everybody else is going that way and they seem to be getting along and everything is good. And I'm the one who gets quarreled with and told that I'm mischievous and I should listen and I don't like to follow rules.
Mm-hmm.
But then I remember I was 16 and I had done something in the temple that 16-year-old girls don't do. That is, you don't give the Sunday sermon. But I was
Okay.
asked to do it, which was surprising because there were a lot of like other older people who are more versed and more knowledgeable and have been in the religion a lot longer than me. And yet the person in charge of the temple, he gave me a book and said, I'm Cindy, I'm not feeling well. If you can do the sermon. So I was surprised, but I liked him a lot and he was like an uncle to me.
Okay.
So I took the book and I read it. And when the time came for the sermon to be read, to be done, everybody was surprised that I took the mic and I started to read what he had given me and talk to people and explain it. And of course, everybody was like, they never saw it that way. And it was really good. And of course, right after you get the backlash, how come
Mm.
she got to do it? She's a girl. Girls don't do that. Why did you
Yeah.
give her? And he was getting quarreled with for giving me, for letting me do it.
Okay.
Why did you let her do that? There are other people here who know better. And she said some things that, people have never heard before. And
Mm.
even in my family, when I went home, they were the same thing. It's like, you should have said this. And why did you say that? And why do you try to sound as if you know more than other people? And I got so tired and I said, listen, the next time it happens, one of you all do it because I did the best I could.
Mm.
And I remember later, like it was nighttime and I don't really sleep much. So I went outside and I was like, I just looked up and I said, what am I doing wrong? What is wrong with me? I mean, if I do this, I'm wrong. If I do the right thing, I'm still wrong. So I said, well, and then I don't know, my thinking kind of shifted where it was like, I said, you know what? Do what feels right to you. It may
Mm.
not feel right to everybody else, but once you can live with it, and you're not here to please other people, you're here to be the best that you can be. And the
Mm.
thing is, you knew all about, what's right and what's wrong because we all learned that from small, what's right and what's wrong. And you know what it's like to be hurt. So don't do that to other people. And that's when I started just looking at things and I said, I'm not going to bother what other people think. Yes, people will say things that will affect me. Yes, I will have people who are close to me who may disappoint me and it will hurt and I will question things. But at the same time, people don't determine who I am.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, I don't know if it would sound right or wrong, but I also feel that in that way, people don't have to worry about getting judged or getting blamed for what happens with us or what comes to us, because we know uh, what is best for us. We know what is good or bad for us. So we know that, okay, even if, okay, let's say if there are any consequences, I'm at least mentally prepared to face those consequences. But this is something that I feel right, and I don't have to uh, convince everyone, because everybody will have their own worldview in their own world of opinions. For one person it could be right, for another person it could be wrong. I don't have I don't have the energy or time to convince everyone. Otherwise, I'll be just lost. Otherwise, I'm just no one. So it absolutely makes sense to me, Sunday.
Yeah, because sometimes like we get so caught up in, I wonder how this is gonna look to other people, and if I don't do this, what other people think about me, and if I do this, at the same time, what people will think about me, and some people are going to disapprove of me, and some people are not gonna like it, and all the time we are always whether you acknowledge it or not, most of the times we are always thinking about what other people are going to say or the impression we're gonna make on other people by doing things, or we want to hide things because other people do not understand. And what I have found is that your mind plays a great deal because that's who you are, basically. Who you are, what you think is who you are. And yes, our mind does control a lot and it is conditioned by what we have gone through our past. That has kind of conditioned our thinking because sometimes we may not want to think about something in a bad light, but we do because we remember all the things that happened before that were bad.
Hmm.
Your mind will pull up, well, I got insulted and this person has done this before and other people have done the same thing to me before. So I have a reason to be better. I have a reason to be cynical. I have a reason to not trust people. And you see, that is when you allow your mind to control you. Now, controlling your mind is very hard. And
Hmm.
learning to steer your thinking away from how it normally runs because of all that you've been through and all the thoughts that you've left gathered inside of you and the emotions that you attach to these thoughts and these experiences. That is what controls you, and very often we forget the fact that we can stop ourselves and say, no, I am not going to go down that path of thinking anymore. I am not going to let myself dwell in the past because that was then, that was something that happened before. Those were different circumstances. I was a different person.
Mm.
The people were different then. This is not the same.
Absolutely. And you know, I would also like to bring in a kind of a challenging angle on mindfulness, Cindy. Now, a lot of mindfulness teaching, it says that um, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Um, when I connect that with your journey. I mean, you lost 4 years to severe illness. You became deadly allergic to every medication on earth, and you also like spent over a decade in wheelchair. B- I mean, were there days or months or years where that statement felt like a complete BS?
Um, we know pain is inevitable because
Mm,
remember, life has to balance. As there's good, there's bad. As there's light, there's darkness. We see that every day. The sun
mm,
comes up in the morning, and even if it's raining, you have light still. And in the night, you have darkness when the sun goes down and when the moon comes out, but still you have darkness. So we understand that life is a series of contrasts. And the thing is, you can't appreciate one thing without the other because if everything good always happens in your life, then you would never know what it's like to really
mm,
appreciate what you have. And when I was going through, and they said, like, pain is inevitable, which is quite true, but
mm,
suffering is optional.
mm,
That is true because,
mm,
yes, you can have pain and it hurts
mm,
and you question everything. But the one thing I found out was that when I went through all the things that I went through, those 4 years of my body being so sick that I lost, my body was present, but I was not physically here because it was so bad and I was in a fog. And with the flat lining and being allergic to all medications and then being confined in a wheelchair and losing my husband,
mhm,
yeah, it was like one set of pain on top of the other and things were just escalating. But the one thing that I did learn through everything that has happened in my life is that bad things would happen whether you want it or not.
mm,
None of
mm,
us want bad things to happen in our lives, but they do happen. And sometimes it's through things that we did, or sometimes most of the times it can be because of other people's actions or things that we never expected. And what I did was that I did resent not being able to do all the things that I didn't do before. I did not like, because I love teaching, I didn't like having to give up teaching or my independence or being able to move as I want. Because when you're
mm,
in a wheelchair, basically confined. And then with all the illnesses, you have to be very careful because there are certain foods I can't eat. And if something happens, I can't take medication. So if I'm in pain, I have no relief like ordinary people would have, right?
mm,
So, and the illnesses in my body, like lupus and chronic kidney disease and heart problems and anemia and stuff like that, high blood pressure, they're not things that leave you. And you do
mm,
get symptoms from it. And like, there's not a day that you don't get up and not feel pain. But the thing is, what I realized is that the more you focus on the pain, the worse it feels and it begins to overtake you. And I remember like I was getting frustrated, like after I was started recovery and got out of the fog, I was in the wheelchair, but I still felt like I was stubborn and I didn't want to be the way that I was.
mm,
But then I was also affecting everybody around me, my husband and my children.
mm,
And I was putting more strain on them by me wanting to do things that I was not supposed to, and me wanting to be stubborn and try to hold on to a life that it was no longer mine. And it came to a head where they would get upset and I would get more stubborn because I would try to walk and I would try to do things and my moods was affecting them. And then then I stopped and because my children were very, very upset and they said, Mom, you have no idea what it's like when you flatline or when you get sick because you are not here.
Mm.
We are the ones who have to go through it and we cannot go through that one more time again. And I stopped and I said, wait, what are you doing, Cyndee? You have always been the one to support everybody and be there for everybody. And you found joy in life and you were always like, no matter what happened, you were the one helping people through trouble and talking to people and letting them see things differently. And you're not doing that for yourself, you're being a hypocrite and you're being very selfish. And I sat down and I said, okay, this is how it is now. I can't go back to the life I had before. So, what are the advantages? Now, that's a strange thing to say. What are the advantages of me being in a wheelchair, not being able to teach, not being able to have my independence, not being able to go out or do things or be as I was before?
Mm.
And I came up with a list of things. I said, well, okay, I got more time to focus on what I want to do. And I got time to slow down and actually think about things. And I realized that I learned to actually listen to people and hear their words and hear what is unsaid. I learned to be more patient with other people and with myself and be more understanding because when people would talk about feeling hurt and things happening to them, I could express more compassion. I had time where I could actually help people, because a lot of people would call me and talk about you know, things that happened to them and like their family members who were going through things or children. Like even I was a teacher. So some parents would call to me and talk to me about things that were happening with their children and I would give them advice. And I realized that even though I was different and life was different now, I could still do things and help in a deeper way. And that's what I did. And also, like, there were things that I always thought about doing. Like, my children love trying different foods, and I began to learn to cook and bake different types of stuff and do pastries. And I also learned to sew, and
Oh.
I love calligraphy, and I learned to do calligraphy. So, you see, you can find avenues in the situation that you are in. And it all depends on how you perceive things. And that's where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is not only about paying attention to what you see and what you do and breathing properly and being open. It's also about catching yourself inside
Mm.
of your own head and redirecting yourself when you know that, okay, if this happened and it's a trigger that I'm going to go along this path of thinking, because something did happen to me recently. And I observed how my mind was running in that um an example. Somebody was supposed to have a meeting with me
Mhm.
and they kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off, and I would be like, okay, fine, okay, I have some other things coming up. We can fit it in probably there. And then like an hour before, Cyndee, I'm very sorry, but this came up or whatever, whatever. So I said, okay, yeah, no problem. So it happened about 3 or 4 times. And then like I said, okay, this is the last time. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But yet I
Mm.
found myself going along the line that why do people keep doing these things and stuff like that? And other people always do it and it's not fair and this person has no consideration. And then I stopped myself and I said, what are you doing? See where you're going? You're going to go down this path and you're going to be thinking this and that. Stop. Okay, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, that's okay. You will have more
Mm.
free time to do something else, So think about something else you can do, spend the time writing or doing something else. And that's how it switched.
That's, I mean, I think this is such a nuanced, very raw and real, uh, not definition, but I'll say embodiment of mindfulness because it's often easy to just give a blanket statement that mindfulness is presence, it's showing up, it's in strength and vulnerability, that and that. But I think it's different for different people, because everyone's life is not the same. So that is, I mean, that actually hits home, Cindy. And I because you are such an inspiration is like the polite way of saying, I'll be very honest. I mean, thank God that's not me. But you just flipped it to something that actually sees the human being in the fight. Because everyone in their own capacity or in their own lives are fighting some kind of battles every day. And we are winning as well. I mean, we are not dismissive of those small wins as well. And I think that is something sometimes we really need to pat our back that, okay, I have gone through that and I've managed to come out of it. So, yeah, let's see what life does, throws all the curveballs. And before we wrap up, Cindy, one final question, which I think I don't remember that if I have explored that with you in any of our previous podcast. Um, your story ends, or at least the public version, with you walking again, publishing books, being called light and salt. But every single person listening who is in the middle of their own version of hell is thinking, great, but what if this doesn't happen ever again? What if my family never comes back? Or what if I'm not able to succeed now? Everything is lost. What do you say to them on the days when, keep going, it gets better? It feels like an absolute lie.
That's the common thing that everybody says. Have faith, keep walking, and tomorrow's going to be better. And sometimes it sounds flippant, especially when you're going through something that's very difficult. It sounds
Mm,
flippant and it sounds like, I don't want to hear that. Tell me something, show me something. And you keep looking, and all you keep seeing is mountains and walls and blockages. And all you keep doing is spinning, spinning, spinning in the mud.
mm,
And you tell yourself, well, that's great for them. I'm really happy that this person got through that, or this person reached where they want to reach. Or, but what we have to realize is that there is no day that nobody doesn't have struggles, no matter how rich you are, how poor you are, how famous you are, what you've done with your life. Every day we all have struggles. And most of the times, circumstances do crash in and cause things to happen. But you see, what you have to realize is that you are not the same person you were yesterday.
mm,
And you are not the person you were this morning when you got up. You got up, you took a first step, you got dressed, you did something. Maybe you went to work, maybe you cleaned your house, maybe you got groceries, maybe you cooked, maybe you went to school, but you did something. And every little step you take is important, because I didn't automatically just get over everything and start to walk, or to learn to manage my life situation, or to learn how
mm,
to cope with pain, or to learn how to write, or to take a risk, and start speaking out about things.
mm,
I mean, it takes something in you. And very often what we don't do is we don't commit to ourselves. And we
yeah.
don't see ourselves as we are. You're a person, you're important. Maybe other people don't value you, but you have to learn to value yourself first. And that is when mindfulness first begins, is when you begin to see your own worth. Okay, I'm not as beautiful as that person. I'm not as strong as that person. I am not as educated. I don't move up as fast as that person. I don't have such a big house. I'm not as successful. I don't have so much money. I don't. We see, well, from the time we start saying, I don't have, I'm not like this one, I'm not, what you're doing is you're negating who you really are.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that, yes, I am a person. I have a job. I go to school. I can learn things. I can walk. I can talk. Yes, I'm in a bad situation, that circumstances, and maybe I attributed it a bit to it, but I got up. The sun is still shining.
Yeah.
I am still moving about. I can take one little step and feel what I'm feeling. And I'm happy that I can feel emotions. And maybe there's something I'm supposed to learn from what I'm going through. Look at it that way. Don't look at it as if everything is against you and life is hell and nothing is ever going to get. From the time you start doing that, you are predicting and marking your own feelings one time for how the rest of your life is going to be. If you say, okay, yes, well, this is a difficult situation, but look, something happened to me before and I got through that. I never thought I'd get a job or something, but now I have a job. I never thought that, you know, I could wake up this morning, but I did. And so you look back at the times when there were difficult things in your life and you bring yourself back to, but I got through that. I can get through this. And very often we seem to forget that there is a higher being, whether you want to call him God or Krishna or Allah or Buddha or whoever you want to call him. There is a higher being that you can talk to. And that's what I do actually. You can talk to all the time. And because sometimes we don't want to tell people the things that are going on in our lives. We don't want to tell people the raw things, but God already knows. So might as well say everything, you know?
Mm.
And when you admit the truth of what you're feeling, you will be surprised. Yes, you will cry and you rage and whatever, but you'll be surprised at how better you feel. And even if you feel depressed and you sit down and you say, I'm sad, nothing goes right with me. But why? Is it because of you think you are sad? And so your body responds to being sad? Or nobody loves you, so you think you are lovable? No, you have to say, I am loved. I was created, wasn't I? I'm here, aren't I? So you have to kind of look deeper instead of looking at the surface of everything. And we see that's what mindfulness really is about. It's not about following all these rules or forcing yourself to do it. It's about looking at you inside and saying, I'm a good person. I have value. I have worth. I am loved. I am chosen. I am worthy. I can do things. I have the strength because I got through this before. And now I can move further. And so you have to connect to you and love you. And from there, you'll be surprised because once you start looking at yourself as a person who has a right to be here and a person who is loved, and you love yourself as you are, faults and all, and you say, okay, well, I can try. I may fall down, but at least I can tell myself and I will know that I did my best. And when it comes down to it, that's what mindfulness is. It's about being the best that you can be and being aware of your thoughts, your feelings, yourself.
Exactly. And Cindy, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, share their thoughts, what would be the best way to do that?
Well, I am on LinkedIn and I'll give you that thing. And also they can, well, my books are on Amazon.com. It's Pieces of Me Touch My Soul, which is poetry, and also Grief is the Price You Pay for Love by Faye Allion. And also they can contact me at Cyndee Dhalai at iCloud.com.
Beautiful. Listeners, what I'll do is I'll have all the details in the show notes. So reach out to Cindy, check out all her books, and if let's see if I can wrap this up. I think um, what I was going to leave inspired, but I leave quieter, less sure of easy answers, but more sure that the work is to stay human when everything is trying to make us the superhuman or the subhuman. So, to everyone listening, if you are in the fog right now, this episode is your gentle reminder that the fog is real and so are you inside it. You don't have to see the path to keep taking the next step because sometimes the miracle isn't that the storm ends, it's that we learn how to dance while still soaking wet. And Cindy, thank you so much because you just gave us permission to stay in it, fight in it, write in it, and love in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
And listeners, please do make sure to check out Cyndee's books as well. This is The Mindful Journey. I'm Sana, and thank you for walking with us, even when it's hard.